Okay, so we posted the journal, we've seen how it's hit the balance sheet, the profit and loss, etc. This journal hasn't been paid off yet, so it's still sitting there as a liability on the balance sheet, right? So 45k needs to be paid to HMRC, the pension payable needs to be paid to Smart Pension in this instance, and then wages payable needs to be paid to the employees. So what's happening in this instance? So I'm now going to go into the banking module and I'm going to look at my bank feeds. We've got other videos on how to set up bank feeds. We're not going to go through that now. And obviously most bank statements aren't just going to have payroll related stuff on it. So you're going to have to go through and find it. I'll start with the HMRC one because it's probably the most simple because I've set up some examples here. So HMRC, we had 45,800. It's sitting there as outstanding as a liability on the bank account. We paid this early before the 19th of the following month, so we're now going to pay this off. So I'm going to categorize manually on the bank account. I'm going to search for PAYE and NIC payable, and then I'm going to make sure it goes to the vendor, HMRC, Cumberland. Save. I'm going to save that transaction. You can set up rules for all this stuff, but we go through that in other videos. So now, if I go back to the balance sheet, what's just happened? This balance sheet is currently set to the 31st of January 2021. So that liability at that date was still outstanding, because if you see, we paid it on the 10th of February. So if I then go, let's just change the date to the 11th of February and apply, you'll see that that liability has now been paid off. It hasn't disappeared, but it's been paid off. I can actually show you with all accounts. This is where I have all the accounts on the balance sheet. If I open up that PAYE and NIC payable account, you'll see that my journal's gone through, created the liability, then when the bank transactions come through, I've paid it off and paid off the liability. So the liability is now zero. Okay, so I'll go back to the banking module. Now I'm going to look at pension. In pension, you'll notice that my original example, it wasn't quite 8,800. What my original liability is, if I look at the pension payable account, it's 9,000. This happens a lot, particularly with pensions. We record a liability because the amount due to the pension scheme is 9,000. However, the pension schemes have these strange policies where they don't collect contributions for people inside an automatic enrolment opt-out period, etc. The contribution is still due to the pension scheme, but they may not collect the exact amount. So this kind of goes into the whole world of PAYE reconciliations and making sure you're tracking any of these differences. But in this instance, I'm going to pay off the liability, but it's not going to be entirely paid off. So pension payable, in this instance, is going to be paid to Smart Pension. They were taking it via direct debit. So I save. If I then go back to the balance sheet, on the 11th, you'll see that pension payable is now showing 200. The reason why it's showing 200 is because I've recorded a liability of 9,000 because that's what the payroll said, the payroll system. We genuinely deducted that off the employees. But for some reason, because of an opt-out or something to that effect, Smart Pension hasn't taken that full value, but they're going to take it the following month. So our records are correct, but essentially Smart Pension are leaving a portion of that money in the employer's bank account until they then take it the following month. The rules behind this is strange. Pension schemes can't hold on to money for too long unless it's invested. Okay, so next step is employee wages. Now, there's £64,000 sitting there as a liability on the balance sheet. That's obviously going to equate to a number of employees. So you're going to have to go through here and code these employees. So it's the same process as before. So wages payable. You can set up a vendor for each person, but for the purpose of this, I'm not going to because it probably takes too long. I'm going to set up a rule just for, I wouldn't do this on yours, but just so we can get through this demonstration. I think I set that rule up wrong, but anyway. Wages payable. So I'm going to want to put all of these to that account code. So what this is doing, this is slowly paying off the wages payable. One thing to notice as I'm doing this is that we paid the employees on the 1st of the following month for the January payroll. So we paid them on the 1st of February 2021, even though the payroll was actually run on like the 28th of January. So an important thing to note here is if I run the balance sheet at the 31st of January, it's going to show a liability, but then if I show it afterwards, it's going to pay it off. So I'll show you that now. This balance sheet is set to the 11th, right? I mean, it could actually be the 2nd. And what you'll see is the wages payable account is 0. So that's because our payroll journal of 64k has been posted there, and then we've paid it off with all these employees' wages here. If I happen to change this balance sheet date to the January accounts, you'll see that the wages payable is still sitting there as a liability. That's because it was paid off on the 1st of Feb, not on the 31st of January. Depending on when your payroll is, this could be 0 at the end of the month, it might not be. But what you'll notice, I'd be very surprised if PAYE and NIC payable and pension payable is paid off at the end of the month, because those aren't even due until the following month. So it's quite likely these are going to sit there as outstanding. So that's it. Thanks for watching this, and yeah, I hope that was useful.